factory through some devious means. While we're away, Stamp is going to set in his army of cats and kittens dressed as gremlins to sabotage the Maude's revenge ride and the big seller Honey in Her Head factory line. Would you rather be Statman or Stamp?
I'll go for Stamp.
All right, and action.
So tell me more, Stamplin, about your plan while the boys are not here, so I guess we're kind of the boss in charge now. Tell me more.
I brought all my cats and I'm gonna sellotape them together into a hobgoblin ball and we're gonna roll it right under that machine.
Oh, but won't that be bad for the boys? Contact boy and glasses boy. Won't they dislike that?
Yes they will. Good observation.
Well, I don't want to do anything that's gonna annoy my bosses, Stampy. I thought we were the good guys here in this organization.
We are doing the Maude's work.
I'm confused, cause you're gonna send all your kittens and cats dressed as monsters who's going for ruin all the ride and all the honey in her head and just spill honey all over the floor. How is that us being good guys?
Just do it.
I like your thinking. When's this going down?
Now.
All right now, under cover
Now.
of darkness. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I've got the hammer and the chisel, and you've got a bag of cats dressed as monsters.
Yep, let's do it.
Maude! It's the Maude Cast, Season 2, 5 a.m. Early bird riser. Get that house clean. Needs to Rex and Marcia. Tinker Turnbull, that's canon. The question of ghost haunts Jackie D. A Madam Shoe collector and sketcher, but not a painter. Although in the comics she does paint at least once. Low-fat ice milk drinker, really. Or ice cream face stuffer. Don't judge me. Maude Cast, Season 2, Episode 18.
18.
Who would have thought it, Nathan? My biological brother and also fellow Cockney watchdog. Who would have thought it?
A long, arduous journey.
Hello, good morning, and Ned Cullum. Don't eat a ham, buddy. Brought to you by Maude Cast Incorporation, a division of Ross Dibney Multiple Conger Eels Incorporated. Sponsors, Log Lady. Yeah. CIA, Cops in Action. Vivacious, Season 9 All-Stars Hopeful. Can we get an update? Susan, Magdalena Boyle, Facebook, RIP. Tell us more. TV show Lost. They were dead all along. Deal made. Anti-sponsor, Son of Sonny Bono, copyright sniffer. And 2011 YouTube video, I Am Your Grandma.
Yes.
Now, we were attempting to thin down our list of sponsors, and we have lost Scott Walker, RIP, and not lost Jack Dedidah, but he's moved out of the sponsorship realm and purely as a consultant. But
And the aardvark.
can we? Oh yeah, Cerebus the aardvark, because we're no longer aiming for that kind of nonsense. Tell us a little bit about Vivacious. Is she going to appear on RuPaul's Drag Race Season 9 All-Stars or not?
It's up in the air. They're only just doing number 6 now, so I'll let you know in 3 years.
3 years? Oh, blimey! I thought it'd be 3 weeks. I thought they did one episode every week. All right, we'll come back to you on that. Here's something you turned up that was mad. Susan Boyle, RIP Facebook, middle name Magdalena. Good research there, my friend.
Yeah, that's. I think it's Magdalene, but we'll roll with it. Yeah, I was in Edinburgh, so I looked up some Susan Boyle stuff, and that was the main thing I found out.
Yeah, so she's never gone to a fancy dress party dressed as Maud Flanders or anything like that.
Not that we know of.
So the strongest link we have is that she's got a middle name that's the same as the imaginary grandmother that we gave to Maud. So good work.
Yeah.
You also sent me a TV show clip from that show that Bradley Walsh does, where he laughs all the time. And what's that called? The Chaser.
The Chase. The Chase.
The Chase. And
The best of British television.
It is. I remember one particularly lively New Year's Eve where we all just sat around for several hours watching clips of it on YouTube. Good time. It was the best of times. Anyway, you sent me a clip that had a question about a poem by Alfred Lord Tennyson, Queen Victoria's poet laureate, as you all know. He wrote a poem called Maude, which he wrote 3 actually. I had a look, and I'm bumping Jacques the Pen Derrida this week in favour of this poem, which I've chopped out the best bits, and I'm going to read for you in the voice of Alfred Lord Tennyson, 18-something and 55, Queen Victoria's back garden.
Come into the garden, Maude, for the black bat night has flown. Come into the garden, Maude, I am here at the gate alone, and the woodbine spices are wafted abroad, and the musk of the rose is blown, beginning to faint in the light that she loves in a bed of daffodil sky, to faint in the light of the sun she lives, to faint in his light and to die. He sets the jewel print of your feet, violet as blue as your eyes, to the woody hollows in which we meet in the valleys of paradise. She is coming, my own, my sweet. Were it ever so airy a tread, my heart would hear her and beat. Were it earth in an earthly bed, my dust would hear her and beat. Had I lain for a century dead, I would start and tremble under her feet, and blossom in purple and red.
It's almost like he wrote this poem to feature in a Maude Flanders-based podcast. Tell me what you thought.
Yeah, some good on-the-nose stuff. The first bit reminded me of a fake Secret Garden.
Good. Canon.
Yes. I don't think we've established her eye colour.
No, but she wears eyeshadow. She wears blue eyeshadow all the time.
Yes. Yeah. Purple drapes. And death.
In Blossom in purple and red. I mean, that's basically all she wears, purples and reds, pinks.
Yes.
And a whole bunch of stuff about being dead. But that's poetry for you. You won't get many poems that don't talk about being dead. That's basically their go-to.
Yeah. It's Maude without an E. But it's, yes.
Well, it's just the old spelling, isn't it? So that's okay. People spelled things differently back then, so that I'm accepting it. All right, give me a moratorium number. You've got a number between 1 and 270.
158.
58. She does not like a public display. Rod in church.
Good. A public display of what? Because I think she quite likes a public humiliation, it seems.
Not her own.
No, but I imagine she doesn't like public displays of affection too much. She doesn't seem to, I don't know, her and Ned are very chastitable, just hand-holding in public. And Rod is in church quite a lot. It's pretty much all I've got for that.
Public displays of affection, public displays of anger. I think this was relating maybe to one of the boys acting up and Maude not really coming down too hard as they did inside the house when we had the vegetable incident. So, yeah, I don't know. Context missing. But one thing we haven't mentioned, Nathan, is what we were recording this locked up in a storeroom of the St. Kitts and Ben Nevis, Maude Flanders Internet Database Museum, because last week, as you know, they had an infestation of hobgoblins, and we've come over to quote unquote help them, but now we've actually been trapped by the hobgoblins in this tiny room because they're quite tricky creatures. As you know, they're generally hobgoblins are sweet and a little bit mischievous. Could be a bit of a nuisance, especially German hobgoblins. They're malevolent, terrorize people sometimes. However, it looks like the people here at St. Kitts have been letting the hobgoblins help out on the machines, but giving them a hard time, like making them work overtime for no money. And they've actually turned into boggarts. Now, boggarts, their sole existence is to play tricks and cause trouble for people. And punish people. And so Joseph and Patricia Lyburn, the owners of the St. Kitts Maude Flanders Internet Museum, as we know, they're currently being held hostage by the hobgoblins, and the hobgoblins are eating their fingernails one bite at a time. So, do you have a plan before we go too far in this episode?
No, I think we just got to let it unfold naturally. The Lythams are resilient, and the hobgoblins sort of. I think they know what they're doing. They're causing chaos, but in sort of a structured way that you could just go back to normal once it's done. They aren't doing a lot of permanent damage.
Well, according to obviously this St. Kitts and Ben Nevis is called the MFIMDB2 because it's the second oldest on the planet. But according to MFIMDB5, our space station, these guys are they operate under cover of darkness, and so in the morning they might start to scamper away and go for a nap, and that might be a time to come out and whip their troons down and embarrass them and all that kind of stuff. Apparently, though, they've said that they'll go back to work for the very reasonable amount of $4,000.
Yeah, each.
Each, yes.
Per goblin.
Per goblin.
No, we'll just replace them.
We'll replace them just for a short term with somebody else, and then we'll kill them off. Is that what
yes, and then we'll bring them back.
Several seasons later. All right, I like that idea. I can hear them scratching at the door, but let's ignore them while we get on to the most important part here is our content today. So would you like to tell the good people at home, scratch, 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 would you like to tell the good people at home what is in store for them in the content part of Maude Flanders cast, aka the Maude Cast, today?
Sure. Four episodes to kind of round up season 6. There's only one season 6 episode left after this. So this is this is the most we've had her in a season so far, with 10 or 11 separate episodes out of 22. So it's been a romp. She has a variety of adventures in these 4, and we see her relationships change and grow.
Yes. So in one, there's biblical one, and then there's a future one, and then there's a hairdressing related one.
Yes.
Good. So let's jump straight into the first one, content, clip 1. Ned is stood on the riverbank with his oldest son Rod next to him. Maude, dressed as Moses' mother in a purple shawl and a blue headscarf, and she has Rod bound up like a baby, and she puts him. No, try that again. She has Todd bound up like a baby, wrapped up as baby Moses, but with his big toddy afro, and she's wrapping him up, and she's going to put him in a basket and put him into the river. Put my kids in danger. Yes, please. That's what I've written as a note. Now, Maude, they're making a movie. I don't have any context for why they're doing this, but they're making a movie about Moses, baby Moses. And so they put Todd in the basket among the reeds, and Ned's knelt down, his arms around Rod. Lights, camera, a diggly doodly doodly action Jackson. 80s movies reference. Maude's smiling, Todd's smiling. Maude puts Todd into the river in the basket, and immediately he's swept away. And it is this point when everybody suddenly realizes how bad an idea this is. Todd is washed rapidly down the river as Maude gasps at him. Rod keeps rolling the camera for a second while Ned looks on shocked. Todd is shouting, "Help me!" There's a bit of an audio gag where he goes behind the trees, and Ned's hands clasp together, and he looks up, and Maude's run over to him at this point. She's hanging off his arm in shock, as if none of them predicted that this was going to happen. Ned looks up, he says, Flanders to God, get off your cloud and save my Todd, not our Todd, my Todd. Grey clouds, lightning, a tree is knocked down by the lightning, blocks the path of Todd in the river. Todd sighs, like he just knew it was going to happen. Like they all kind of knew it was going to happen. Insurance, gambling, I don't know. Maude's jumping for joy, arms raised, as are Ned and Rod. Ned looks up, thanks God. God, after basically not giving too many clues over the last 2,000 years about his existence or longer, comes down with a giant hand, makes the OK sign, and says, "Okily dokily," therefore proving his existence ultimately in the Simpsons universe. A lot there, Nathan.
Great unpacking. I made some notes for this one.
Yeah.
I forgot to look what Moses' mother was called, but this is our second seeing her as a biblical wife/mother.
I did look it up actually, but I didn't write it down. Her name, I mean, I checked on the internet, was Jochebed. Jochebed, daughter of Levi and mother of Aaron, Miriam, and Moses. Wife of Amram as well as his aunt. No details are given concerning her life, which is very much in fitting with the Maude Flanders story.
Yeah, she fits pretty well. I speculated whether she did it on purpose or not, but I've ultimately decided probably not, because it doesn't seem like the best. It's a good alibi, I suppose, but, you know, there's easier ways, and I don't think she's a outright killer. She's...
Again, a stone cold killer. Cold-blooded.
No. The other note I made was that it's not... This is the only time that it's not Maggie Roswell, I think. It says on the Simpsons wiki that it's Pamela Hayden doing the gasp and the cheering for Maude, which is she voices Rod, I think, and Millhouse, etc.
Okay.
So no Maggie Roswell. They didn't want to fly her out to just gasp and cheer.
Probably a wise decision.
Yes. I didn't realise, maybe it's just in this context, but I didn't realise how little I liked this scene until recently. Like, it's sort of wildly out of place. Like, Homer spoke to God before in like a dream sequence, but also God has done this similar thing before in the Mr. Plow one, where he sort of melts all the snow. Like, he responds to Homer, but not directly. Like, Homer doesn't hear the response. But this is just stupid.
Well, let's contextualize it. Maybe Flanders is projecting and it's just a coincidence that lightning strikes the tree and he is an unreliable narrator. There is that. This is,
possible.
Again, I talk about Dan Harmon all the time, but he does that in Community all the time, where he'll have something absolutely ridiculous and he'll somehow recontextualize it so that it still makes sense. Like when they're in space or when they're doing the paintball kind of like Wild West thing. It's still ridiculous, but it just brings it back into the line of being like, okay, I still buy it in the Simpsons universe that maybe God didn't literally come down, but Ned imagined that or projected that onto that, and he was just damn lucky that lightning decided to strike at that point. Why are they making a movie?
There's a film festival in town. I checked, and Maude isn't present for the deciding about the film festival or the actual film festival, just the filming. But it didn't seem to go very well, so this is one of those occasions where it makes sense that she probably said, like, you know, Todd nearly died, let's leave this.
Probably didn't do a second take.
No. But she also, like, none of them are shocked to see God, which would blend into the idea that Ned's sort of imagining it, because none of them are remotely surprised when God's hand comes down and speaks directly to them.
Yeah, I mean, you have Deus Ex Machina, right, which is a really cheap way to get out of any kind of trouble, but it doesn't often mean that literally. I mean, traditionally, it did literally mean the gods came down into the play arena, right? And but they don't really use it in that sense anymore. So this is like a literal Deus Ex Machina. He just comes down, he says, like, "I'm in trouble. Here you go. There you go, Ned."
Yeah.
But Ned, if Ned really had on call a god or the god, surely that's setting him up for some wild adventures. I'm just going to jump off this building now. God, make sure you come down and swoop down and save me. He's essentially got superpowers. Yeah.
And again, Ned prays. Maybe it was about the timing of it, but Ned prays and God saves Todd, but nobody's saving Maude when she falls. God just lets her go.
Yeah, and see, that would have been grim had he put in a prayer. But maybe it's too short. It happened so soon that nobody was ready for it. Whereas you got ample time to watch Todd for a little bit and then have a bit of a think and then say his prayer. So
yeah. But yeah, that's her only appearance in that episode. She doesn't return for the film festival or see football in the groin.
What do you think then, given, all right, two things. You've already said that she didn't do it on purpose. Is she just stupid? Because you can see how fast a river is running. It's not rocket science. There's going to be like, at that speed, there's going to be twigs and all kinds of stuff going past you. You might just test it out.
Yeah, it's not the brightest idea considering they're not the dumb family. So it's kind of stupid that none of them, especially given how cautious they are, that they decided to, unless the whole thing is part of the movie and like a movie within a movie. So somebody else, let's say Ruth Powers, is filming all of this happen, and the God thing is added in post-production.
A meta movie. I don't think the Flanders are meta people, though.
No, it does just seem like they made a bad decision.
A very bad decision, because they wrapped him up tight so he couldn't get out. Now, even in the story, that was supposed to happen because Moses' mother puts the basket in the river with the intention of it floating away so that it can get away from the king who's looking out to murder all the firstborns, right? The pharaoh. So it seems like the whole thing was really badly thought out, and once again, putting their children in direct danger for no good reason.
Yeah.
But in this case, purely so that they could get some recognition and some cash, I'm guessing, to even worse in some of the other instances.
I agree. Not very Flanders. They must have been having an off week.
An off week. Yeah. The existence of God proven. So if you are going to run with your theory, then I get Maude's opinion on it. If not, what's her belief that she saw Neddy? Let's go for the theory that nobody else other than Ned saw God's hand, and it was all in his head. What's Maude's reaction to Ned praying and then the tree immediately being hit by lightning and saving Todd? Because if it had been a second later, it would have crushed him, and he was in that basket tied up.
Right.
Tied up tightly, and not only is he going down the river, he's now been smashed in the face by a giant tree.
Yeah. I think she stayed calm the whole way through because I just think her faith is that kind of strong, and it's been rewarded once again. We say how unlucky they are, but they are quite lucky as well, in that the bad things that happen to them 9 times out of 10 get resolved. Even like now, like Ned seems to hang out with Maude's ghost pretty regularly. Like everything sort of comes back around to a place where they're sort of happy. So I think she just sort of saw it happen and was like, yeah, I knew that was going to happen. I believed. And look, it did. Take that.
Take that and party. Shall we move on to clip 2?
Yes, one of the more pivotal of all the clips, I think.
Definitely the saddest, and gives us some real food for thought, in a way. So we are looking at Lisa's future wedding. An alternative future, an alternate timeline? Who knows? You have to tell me, Nathan. So Homer is talking to his new in-laws to be and his son-in-law, a Hugh Grant style character. Is he played by Hugh Grant?
No, he's called Hugh though.
Oh.
He is Mandy Patinkin.
Oh, a lady.
No, don't be stupid.
What?
It's he's from Homeland.
He's a man.
He's a man.
His name is Mandy.
His name is Mandy. Spelled the same.
I don't know him.
Yeah, from the Simpsons.
Oh, his name's Mandel. Mandel Bruce Patinkin.
I see. Great.
All right, back onto the track. So the Hugh character nervously says, ha ha ha, Homer, laughing at something, and obviously Homer is going to embarrass himself greatly in front of these posh British parents. And we cut to the stalls of a theatre, and we see a delightful mid-70s, I'm guessing, Ned Flanders, looking quite sharp, although must be probably much older than I consider. He's already in his 60s at this point, right?
He's got to be like 90.
He's 90s, a very healthy-looking 90-year-old wrinkled Ned, stately and regal. Next to him, Maude Flanders. The hair a little less fiery, still rocking the blue eyeshadow, now with some very respectable spectacles. And then a chubby Patty and Selma sidle up behind them. And I've made a note, this is the saddest of all things, a future that will never be.
Yeah, the way around it is that it's a prophecy / vision that Lisa is presented with. So it was either, like some kind of vision she saw in a ball, or it was something she just imagined in her head. Because Edna is also in that clip at the wedding, old. So Maude and Edna both present when they cannot be. To make it sadder as well, Homer does a very good job with the parents. Like his sort of he can't get over the snobbery, like the new guy. So Lisa says go away. But Homer comes through and is very sweet and tries his best. And he still thinks he's a bit of a scrubber. So
those damn British snobs. It's like there was an Horses episode where Rodney tries to marry that lass. They all laugh at Del.
Yeah, and the chandelier.
Yeah. Is it the same episode with the chandelier? The second clip in the history of British television.
After the one where he falls through the bar.
Exactly. After the one, the funniest clip in British television history.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's sort of a nice, sad, sort of bittersweet look at what could have been. She looks, she just sort of looks, nothing radical's changed. But this is sort of just Lisa's imagination. The only one that's seemingly radically changed is Krusty. Krusty looks really bad. He's really fat and in a wheelchair. And nobody else has really changed that much. Also, this episode is set 13 or 14 years in the Simpsons' future, I think. But in our linear world timeline, it is set in 2010.
Oh.
Yeah, so it is a decade old.
Decade-old vision of the future. But that's happening in so many things now, isn't it? Back to the Future 2 was set in 2019 or something like that, or whatever. And then comic 2000 AD. It was when it was set in the late 70s, 2000 AD was the future.
Yeah.
Now we don't see.
Not so much. But yeah, they guessed a couple of things like a Skype call, a couple of kind of notable things that did end up happening. But not about Maude.
Skype was popular in 2010.
Well, the episode's from 1995, I think.
Oh, yes. Don't get me wrong. I understand that they made a prediction, and it was a good one. But not this one. It was a bad one, because Maude Flanders, unfortunately, she's dead. Contractual negotiations fell apart. Maude died. And we will never get to see her looking as stately and as old as this, because for the rest of time, she's not going to age. Which, of course, is nobody else in Springfield going to age either. So that's not as big a deal as you'd think it would be.
True, but she still has to not be a part of things. She just doesn't get to not age with everybody else. She has to not age on her own somewhere else.
Yes, in some kind of liminal zone, because obviously if she keeps popping back, she's not quite in heaven. We've talked about this before. But that's for the future, the real future. Anything else to say about that projected future?
No.
I got one other thing to say, and we talked today about The Simpsons tapped out and how it was an alternate timeline. You're classing this not as an alternate timeline, but more as a dream, a what if, yeah? Yeah,
I put this more as a vision rather than because sometimes they've been specific and said, this is just an episode set 10 years in the future. Whereas this is, Lisa goes to a psychic who says, would you like me to predict your future?
Yes.
So, bad psychic.
Bad psychic. Shut down for unforeseen irregularities. Clip 3. They are in a hair salon. We got Maude sitting there with curlers in her hair. And they got one of those big old-fashioned 50s style hair dryers on their head. She's sitting next to Luann Van Houten, Agnes Skinner, and Edna Krabappel, the Investorettes, as they will come to be known, but not yet. And over on the side, we have Helen Lovejoy getting her haircut. And they're kind of talking, but the joke is they can't hear each other because they're in their, they got these hair dryers over their heads. So Edna says that, I can't go to the library anymore because everybody stinks. And Agnes says, he said it was his day to use the tub pillow. Fair enough. Maude, and you pointed this out, this was weird. Maude says, I hope they have US magazine in heaven, Us magazine in heaven. I mean, she's not actually reading Us magazine. She's got a nondescript grey book in her hand, but I guess they could have put some kind of weird protective cover over it. But it's such a weird thing to be saying, right?
Yeah, I made a note about it being all the Investorettes, and maybe this is the salon where that kind of group formed. She's just, it's weird. Yeah, she's talking about, again, like I suppose they needed to give, from a writing point of view, you've got these 4 characters. We're going to give at least 3 of them a line. Edna and Agnes are sort of guaranteed because they're the funniest. So it was sort of a toss-up between Luann and Maude, and I think Maude has slightly more characterization than Luann, and they can say, like, oh, let's just give her a line about church or God. You know, there isn't anything. Luann maybe we could have said something about Millhouse. Like, her and Kirk aren't really too troubled at this point. So I think it just, from a logical point, it was.
But what she says is super weird and unnecessarily, like, you know, I think the others are talking about troubles they've had and dramas they've had, and maybe Maude just doesn't have any troubles and dramas, and her main concern is whether she'll get her favourite magazine. Newsweek, apparently her favourite magazine, but she obviously likes Us magazine and celebrity gossip, which I want to ask you about also. But she just brings up the idea that, once again, death seems to stalk every conversation and every interaction. We've already had the first one where she almost kills her child. The second one where she's projected in a future where she can't possibly exist because she's dead. And then the third one, she brings up that her favorite magazine should be stocked at the pearly gates. What's going on?
And there is a secret 4th one that I considered putting in, but she isn't in, so I'm just going to tell you about it after clip 4. Okay. But it's just sort of always on her mind. It's like they've sort of already decided subliminally there was some sort of desire to kill Maud Flanders, because this is direct reference number 3 at least to Maud being dead or in heaven or something to do with, you know, like the other week when everybody thought she was dead, and there was one before that I can't place. But it's weird. She just sort of it's always on her mind. Like, yeah, Agnes is talking about a bath pillow incident with Skinner. It's also, you got Agnes next to Edna and Maude next to Edna, and Edna has dated both of the pivotal men in those 2 women's lives, or will go on to date. But just thought that was interesting to note.
Interestingly enough, like when they do animate it, Luann's chair and body disappears because you can see Agnes on one side, but on the other side, there's nothing there anymore. So Luann completely disappears from that conversation. But I wonder, like, when with the writers, if they did some research and they, you know, kind of came across Maude, and maybe that planted the seed in their head that's how she should go, because, you know, they could have potentially written her out in other ways, right? They didn't have to go that dramatic, spoiler, when eventually she pops her clogs. But I just wonder if the amount of references to heaven and death just meant, like, well, it seems obvious that this is what we would do.
Yeah, it's strange because, again, I don't think I should have quit. The idea of killing Maude would never have come up because they wouldn't have needed to, you know, sort of have a reason for her to not be around, because Maggie Roswell would have still just been around. So it's a weird sort of, it's sort of like it was, everything just sort of aligned, and they had this character who was seemingly very fascinated with death, eventually being one of the very few characters to die.
Yes. So what do you think that her take is on celebrity gossip? Because, you know, it's all good and well that she's picked up the Us magazine garbage and she's flipping through it in the her salon, but for it to be one of the few things that she requires in heaven seems like it's plays a slightly bigger part in her life than ice milk, ice water.
There's a potential that she's kind of just trying to be liked. Like, she's reading this magazine because it's there, and she sort of makes the assumption these other women like this magazine. So she's saying, oh, you know, I really like this magazine too. I hope they have this in heaven.
Heaven's the best place ever. And so I must really like it if I want it to be in heaven.
Yeah. Or, yeah, maybe she just really likes, maybe she's got a particular celebrity she likes and she likes to clip clip them the way that she clips Landers.
Would you like to conjecture who that might be?
Somebody bland, somebody along the Donny Osmond kind of route, but an actor.
Yeah. He would be good. The Osmond, right? He's a Mormon, so I don't know if she would dislike him for that reason, but probably not. He's peachy clean. David Cassidy. All those 70s peeps that looked clean cut, but were they?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not going to lie and slander them here on air without proof. Yes.
Scum.
I think, let me pick up on that point then. Do you think, if she is trying to just fit in with these other ladies, and eventually it works because, they get bowling teams and investor groups and things, do you think that's something she does a lot? Is she trying to weasel her way into friendship groups by, saying she likes stuff that she doesn't really? Peer pressure, giving into peer pressure.
I think maybe not. I think she's maybe just had a look around and thought, I don't really have many friends, so maybe she's, there are all 5 of them are there at the same time for some reason, so they probably organised this in advance. So I imagine Maude is just, taking the chance to make friends and sort of get out of the Flanders house for a bit. And she sort of, we're basing it off, she's had Janice, she's had potentially Ruth Powers, she's had her maternal, sort of, I imagine her mum was the loving one. So I think she just likes the influence of, sassy ladies. So she's
ladies.
Yeah, she's wanting to be around some friends as opposed to her husband and those 2 freaky kids.
Well, then what happens in a setup that could only really exist in somewhere like Springfield, Marge Simpson walks in and all of the chat stops. And she says, "Don't stop talking on account of me. I may be a cop, but I'm still your friend." Like, what? Are you a cop?
Yeah.
Obviously, that's the context of the episode. And this is a wacky and zany show. How can she be a cop when she went to prison only a few episodes ago, but maybe she got let off? I'm not sure. Maude is looking tight-lipped with her eyes half closed. She ain't going to say no more of that giddy talk while this cop is around.
Yeah, weird, because I imagine Maude to be sort of respectful of authority. I don't think she's scared because she hasn't really done anything wrong. So I think this is just a case of she just doesn't like Marge. She's, she wants to make Marge just sort of feel bad. Because imagine, I don't know, if Ned became a police officer, I imagine it would make Maude very proud and happy. So it's weird that she doesn't look at Marge and think, oh, this is great, She's gone from criminal to prisoner in minimal time. Criminal to police officer. Just stirs her out.
Are the police prisoners of a system that's bigger than them? Oh, good Lord. Let's not get into that, Nathan.
No, too troubling.
I think she's pro-cop. I agree. I think she'd normally be pro-cop. There's something about Maude, pitching. There's something about Marge being a police officer that makes all the other ladies not want to go tight-lipped. Because, none of them were particularly saying anything that would get anyone in trouble. You can't get in trouble for taking the tub pillow on the wrong day or for smelling in a library. None of those are criminal offences, even though they should be.
Marge at this point has already, as a cop, been to the Skinner house about the bath pillow in this episode because they both said it was their turn to use the bath pillow, and then they both called the police.
Domestic.
So I sort of think they're all. Well, it makes more sense for the likes of Edna, Agnes, even Luann, to be the idea that they've got some sort of shady, not necessarily illegal, but maybe morally, that they don't want to bring up around a police officer. But Maude doesn't really fit into that category. Neither does Helen, really. But she just sort of, everybody else has been quiet. She's already trying to make an impression. She isn't going to be the one that says, hi, Marge, come and sit with us. She doesn't like her that much.
Yeah, and the irony in some ways is the only person she's ever got in trouble to such an extent they might go to jail is Marge Simpson. So I don't know if Maude's really got anything to worry about, but as we said before, maybe she's just, solidarity with these other sisters that might have some more shady business going on. I wouldn't be surprised if Edna Krabappel's got some gin in her bathtub or something like that.
Yes.
So Clip 4, it's still in the same place. They're still in the hair salon, and for no good reason that I can understand, Marge drops and rolls. Does a forward roll across the floor, whips out a pistol, points it at Helen and Mo, who's also in there getting his hair done, and the two hairdressers, who gasp with their arms aloft. Maude and Co are sat behind where Marge is, and they also put their hands up with a shocked look on their face. Maude Flanders has a very shocked look. She slowly lowers her arms as Marge laughs and puts away the gun and says, "Ooh, that looks nice. It's a good length for you." And
Yeah,
Edna's gun is something I noticed as well.
I didn't notice that. That's weird. Inconsistent. The chair drops and it sounds like a gunshot. So Marge is trying to, protect everybody, but she's just sort of in. The point is she's trying to say, like, I'm still your friend, I'm not a cop, but she can't escape the sort of police mode. But again, it's weird. I get that they all put their hands up in kind of fear, but surely they would be like, oh, like, we appreciate that you were looking out for us. But they sort of, again, they're treating her like some kind of freak when she's doing something pretty upstanding and sort of, pretty unlike Marge, pretty commendable, sort of like brave and out of the house and doing it for herself sort of situation. And yeah, nobody is cheering her on.
Yeah, she's out there. She's done something, and they would have thought made her an upstanding citizen, but she's been a little bit pushed out of the group. However, if you are going to whip out your pistol and fire, point it at people at the drop of a noisy pin, you're not going to win many friends. So I'm kind of with them on that. If I had a friend who was a police officer and they pulled out kind of shenanigans, I think I'd probably have a word with them and say, yeah, you might want to maybe whip out your mace or your nightstick first before you go for the Smith and Wesson in your pocket.
You don't win friends with bullets.
You don't. And so Maude wasn't again in direct danger there, but what must she have been thinking about this situation?
Well, maybe, and I'd like to keep an eye on this for the next couple of episodes, is maybe this was sort of the wake-up call, how she's been after this sort of rush of adrenaline or whatever, this sort of like the sort of near-death experiences or like the car chases and stuff. Maybe this was sort of enough for her to be like, because she heard what she thought was a gunshot, and then the next thing you know, somebody's aiming a gun in the room. So maybe after this, it sort of calmed her down a bit, and she was like, I've had my fill. I'm happy to go back to being, just living my normal life. That's sort of what I think may have happened. The other possibility is that we just said, she got Marge sent to prison. So there's always the idea that she's got it in the back of her head that Marge now, as a police officer, will try and seek revenge in some way and get Maude sent to prison or shoot her in the head.
You're in the back of the head in a dark alleyway. A corrupt Marge Simpson, the most corrupt of cops.
Yes.
Worm in the apple.
But yeah,
it's the second time in this clip that death has reared its head. Not directly, but of course, a loaded gun being fired at people. It's not your average situation. It's definitely danger.
Yeah, and then the direct scene after this that I was going to include, but it was just a bit too long and sort of not. It was indirectly related to Maude. His Homer then steals some of Marge's police caution tape and tapes up the Flanders drive. So when Flanders gets home, he drops to his knees or something and says something horrible's happened. And then Homer comes out in fits of laughter saying I fooled you, I made you think your family was dead. And just continues to laugh as Ned stands next to him trying to process that everything's sort of fine and nobody's died, and how could someone make this kind of joke? And eventually Homer just kind of bullies Ned into laughing along and saying, that was a good one. So the next scene is about, again, Ned thinking that Maude has somehow been brutally killed inside the house.
It's relentless. It is relentless.
Especially this week.
So, is that it? You want to move on from content, or you got any more to say about those clips?
No, all good.
Those were fun. I think we gave them their time in the sun there, and let's move on without delay to spectral speculations, aka developing the Goodmans and Turnbulls. And I got a question for you. I want you to fill in the gaps here. So
Yeah.
we know that Maude met Ned when she was about 19. She was at university around that age, and she left university after 1 year, spending a little bit of time in Edinburgh along the way, where you've just been.
Yes.
But what we don't know is, was Neddy the first boyfriend or love interest in Magdalene Goodman's life, or were there others?
I believe there could have been some kind of teenage sweetheart, but I think like Ned's sort of the first real partner.
First real
Like
one.
I think
To a 15-year-old Maude or a 17-year-old, whatever, however old she was when she had this teen fling, that's huge. I want to hear a little bit more about this teenage fling. Was it just an afternoon at the mall for ice creams, or was it a little more than that?
I think it was all very above board, like just sort of the polite boy from down the street, Ralph Tonks.
Ralph Tonks of Springfield Township, just outside of Fargo, North Dakota. Sometime in the late 70s, early 80s, we would get.
He was just your run of the mill. Like he lived up the street. She knew him from church. They went to the mall and got some, non-fat ice milk every now and again. But then she ended things because she found out he was killing rats.
Was he killing them for fun, or was he a ratter? Did he go out ratting for fun, or were they dog poor and he was doing it to feed his family?
No, it was like a Dharma thing, but eventually he turned it into like a profession, becoming like an exterminator rather than a boy eater.
Oh, so he didn't go down that dark path. He took the healthy path and used his powers for good. And
yeah, so he worked it out, but Maude, it was just a bit too much for Maude.
He wanted a little bit more from this relationship. What age are we talking here? Are we early teen sweethearts, or are we talking, high school?
I'm going to say like 14, 15.
For the first,
it's all very, very placid, very, very sweet, except for the dead rats.
Except for the ratting. Do you think he ever tried to take Maude ratting on a date?
Yeah, but I think she, sort of drew the line. That wasn't when it ended, though. I think she sort of, she didn't mind it as a hobby until she realised just how sort of, life-consuming it was for him.
So what was...
he needed to kill a rat a day.
Ralph Tonks, his name. Ralph Tonks, the average common or garden human from down the street in the Springfield Township, mainly defined by his love of ratting and a rat a day. His slogan was a rat a day. And thankfully, unlike most child murderers of animals, he didn't go on to become a serial killer, but instead worked in the area now as a grown-up as an exterminator of cockroaches, mice, and probably still rats. He
kind of, he figured things out. It wasn't too troubling of a hobby the end. And I imagine Maude had no hard feelings toward him as an adult.
I mean, I'd be interested one day maybe to track him down and do an interview with him, Ralph Tonks, exterminator.
Yeah.
And see where he is these days and what he feels about Maude, but that won't be for today. However, who knows, maybe in her diary one day she'll reflect on that fateful day when Ralph took her ratting. Speaking of that, we have just enough time for a page from Maude's thick tome. Do you have a page that you'd like to share with us today?
Yeah, I wanted to make one I made a week too late note from a couple of weeks ago. The flashback where Maude tells Homer about Marge being pregnant. That was the first time that Maude was written by a female writer.
Oh.
And she's called Jennifer Crittenden. And strange that it was like 5 seasons, and then Maude sort of got a female voice speaking for Maude, but I didn't notice any sort of big differences. So it looks like everybody's got the sort of nail on the head.
Yes, no massive stylistic changes in that scene that leapt out to me. But, the Simpsons writing group did seem a bit of a boys' club in the early days. Though, I know there were females involved, but a lot of the names that we read are male names.
Yeah.
Good.
I think around this sort of season onwards, it sort of becomes a bit more varied.
Interesting.
But I do have a diary page.
Yes, please enlighten us with a page from Maude's diary.
It's pretty early on. Well, like halfway through, just before halfway.
Not ratting early.
Not ratting. No, post-ratting mode. Yeah, here it goes.
Dear Diary, today's been a big day. Me and my cousin Sarah were out. She came to look after me because I was feeling sick after, having the baby a couple of weeks ago. So Ned's going to look after baby Rod, and me and Sarah are going to go out for a bit of a shopping trip, was what I was thinking this morning. But then when we got there, the shopping centre had been shut down, and Sarah was annoyed because she's a bigger lady, like my sweet ma, and it was the only plus-sized women's shop in the tri-state area. So she said, F it, let's break in. Let's just go in and see if there's any stuff left. And I couldn't believe it. I said, no, you can go. I can't control you, but I'm going to stay here. So I did, and she wiggled her fat ass through the window. And then I could hear mooching inside, and then the next thing I knew, there was a cop car in front of us, and the police chief, old Jewish man, was there with his newest trainee on the job, Clancy Wiggum, I believe he was called. And they went in and arrested Sarah and took her away. So now we have to use the money we'd saved for Rod's injections to pay for her bail. So he's going to be a weak boy. But it looks like Sarah and this police officer might be going on a date soon, so not too bad. Bye.
Oh my goodness, revelation after revelation. Breaking into the mall, or at least allowing her friend to break into the mall. Her cousin Sarah, and this could be the same Sarah that eventually marries Clancy Wiggum and becomes Sarah Wiggum.
I believe so.
I know that because it's in our hypothetical family tree, but my goodness, I'd like to dig into that a little bit more and where that connection might have come from. Are they all in this town? Yes.
Well, Sarah Wiggum at some point said to Clancy, he said to her, you're as pretty as the day I arrested you. So this must be that day. It must be. Assuming
that she's not been arrested multiple times.
Yes, but it seemed to be his first day on the job.
Yes. It all makes sense. He's slotting into place. And this totally canon diary that we've somehow come across is really filling in a lot of gaps. So we were very lucky boys, weren't we, to really get that?
Yeah, it's a rare treat.
Now, it looks like the hobgoblins have found out how to get into the room and they've started to come in through the air vent. And they don't look very happy. So I'm afraid, Nathan, we're probably going to have to wrap up the show there. Let's get out the javelins and machetes and homemade cherry bombs. And let's get ready to give these hobgoblins a good old seeing to. And maybe, even save Joseph and Patricia along the way and get this factory back to a reasonable level of hobgoblinry.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. But first, let's sing a song.
Okay.
Who's going first?
Okay. Hobgoblins everywhere.
Ned and Maude dressed as Moses' mother.
Pamela Hayden.
By the river, I've got a camera on you.
Vision, not flash forward.
I love to put my kids in danger.
The forming of the Investorette.
I'm gonna let my son get washed rapidly down the river.
Jennifer Crittenden.
Maude Flanders to God, get off your clod and save my Todd.
Is this the rush she's after?
A delightful mid-90s Maude and Ned, or 70s Maude and 90s Ned.
Database Todd team up.
Barber shop or her salon, ladies and men getting their hair done.
Maude's roots.
I hope they have US Us magazine in heaven.
Copyright restriction.
Chit chat stops. Stopping all the chit chat. Tight lipped and half closed eyes.
Judgy looks.
It's a good length for you.
Old Edna also.
I'm lowering my arms.
The end.
The end. We did it, Nathan O'Leary and my There's a good brother. We got to episode 18, and that means that the horizon, episode 19, which is officially unofficially the last Maude-centric episode of the season before we do our special, no spoilers, number 20 episode. Anything to say to these clowns before we go?
I'll give a tease that it's a dead character.
Oh. All right, I'm going to play the music now, and I hope that clown son of Sonny Bono doesn't come round and start knocking on the door and the window again. Ring, ring, phone's ringing. Oh, it's him. It's bloody him already, isn't it? I'm ghosting him. Go to voicemail. Son of Sonny Bono, go to voicemail. The end. Bye.
Bye. I brought all my cats and I'm gonna sellotape them together into a hobgoblin ball, 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 hobgoblin ball.
Thought we were the good guys here in this. Thought we were the good guys here in this.
Good guys.
Yes, they will.